Many men believe that the best way to impress a woman is by being nice, considerate, and helpful. This idea is drilled into them from an early age. Parents, teachers, and society all teach that a good man is friendly, avoids conflict, and always puts others first. Of course, kindness is a positive trait, but if it comes from insecurity or a need for approval, it often has the opposite effect. Women lose interest. Why? It's simple. Women are drawn to men who radiate confidence and inner strength. A man who neglects himself just to please a woman doesn't come across as attractive. He comes across as weak. Women can sense when a man is being nice not out of genuine conviction, but because he's afraid of losing her affection. They pick up on it when he ignores his own needs just to make her happy. And that makes him seem inauthentic. But how can you tell if you're being too nice? In this video, I'll give you 5 clear signs that you're being overly nice, and that it's probably the reason you're not seeing success with women. As always, I'll explain the psychological patterns behind this behavior, and show you how to appear more attractive without pretending to be someone else, or giving up your kindness completely. Most of the time, this way of acting comes from childhood conditioning, which is exactly why it's so important to understand where it comes from. The 5th sign especially is something most men completely overlook. They don't even realize it's a mistake, but it's often the very reason women eventually lose interest. So stay until the end to make sure you don't miss that key point. Let's jump right in. Sign number 1. You're always available. A man who's too nice puts a woman at the very top of his priority list, often before she's even earned that position. As soon as she texts him, he drops everything, cancels other plans, and is immediately at her service. He thinks this will win her over, but in reality, it does the opposite. She loses respect for him. Women are attracted to men who have a fulfilling life of their own, who aren't dependent on just one person. When a man is always available, it sends the message that he has nothing better to do, and that makes him less attractive. A woman wants a man who's on his own path, not someone who drops everything just because she suddenly has time. Psychologically, this behavior often stems from a deep fear of rejection. Many men are scared that a woman will like them less if they're not instantly available. But in truth, women respect the kind of men who don't immediately cave in. Men who have clear priorities. Example, a guy has plans to work out with his friends. Just before he's about to leave, a woman he likes texts him and asks if he's free tonight. A too nice guy would cancel everything and say, "Sure, when should I come over?" A confident man would say, "I already have plans tonight, but I could meet up with you tomorrow." That shows her he has his own life, and that's what makes him attractive. The key is to stop giving up your plans for a woman. Start treating your own time and needs as just as important as hers. A man who respects himself automatically becomes more attractive. Let's move on to the 2nd sign that you're too nice. You're afraid to voice your own opinion. Another clear red flag is how you deal with disagreement. If you always agree with her just to avoid conflict, you're signaling insecurity. Many men believe they're pleasing a woman by going along with everything she says. They listen, nod at everything, and avoid disagreeing, even when they have a totally different opinion. But women respect men who are brave enough to stand by their own views. They don't want a man who just goes along with everything. A guy who always agrees quickly becomes boring, because he doesn't show any sense of identity. This behavior often runs deep. Men who've gotten used to adapting all the time are usually scared of rejection. They're afraid a woman might like them less if they say something she doesn't agree with. But ironically, that very fear makes them unattractive. An example, a woman says she loves a certain movie, but the guy actually didn't like it at all. A too nice guy afraid of disappointing her will just say, "Yeah, totally. That movie's amazing." He thinks agreeing is the safer option. But a woman can tell when a man is faking it. She senses he's not being real. It's much more attractive when the guy says, "Really? I actually found it kind of boring, but I get why you liked it." That shows her he's genuine and confident enough to stand by his own opinion. Women are drawn to men who have their own point of view. A guy who always agrees doesn't give a woman a chance to truly respect him. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss any future tips on male-female dynamics or dating in general. On to the 3rd sign. You apologize all the time, even when it's not necessary. A common behavior among overly nice guys is excessive apologizing. They say sorry when they accidentally brush against someone. They apologize for having a different opinion. They say "I'm sorry" just for saying no once in a while. The problem is that this signals, on a subconscious level, that they don't see themselves as important. A man who constantly asks for forgiveness gives off insecure vibes. But women are attracted to men who know their worth and don't feel the need to apologize for every little thing. This excessive apologizing usually comes from learned behavior in childhood. Men who grew up in environments where they were harshly criticized for mistakes often develop a strong fear of doing anything wrong, so they apologize automatically, because deep down, they're afraid of being rejected or punished. But a man who respects himself only apologizes when it's truly necessary. If he hurts someone or acts out of line, sure, that calls for an apology, but not for everyday things, and definitely not for simply expressing an opinion. Women respect men who are aware of their own value and aren't afraid to take up space. Now let's move to the 4th sign that you're too nice. And this one's short. You keep getting friend-zoned. The ultimate sign that you're too nice is if women constantly see you as just a good friend, not a potential partner. They like you, but only as a buddy. This happens because from the start, you're too nice. You don't create any tension. You don't show that you're a man with his own goals, desires, and boundaries. Women don't want a best friend. They want a man who challenges and excites them. The solution? Show from the beginning that you're not just nice, but also masculine, confident, and assertive. Once you embody that, the friend zone becomes a thing of the past. Let's move on to the fifth and final sign for today's video. And this is one that nice guys struggle with the most. You don't set boundaries and let people walk all over you. A man who's too nice is often afraid to say no. He believes people will only like him if he's always helpful and understanding. But in reality, the opposite happens. If you don't respect yourself, others won't either. Women unconsciously test how far they can push a man. If he doesn't set boundaries, they lose respect. A man who always says yes doesn't seem kind. He seems weak. From a psychological perspective, this behavior often comes from a deep need for validation. Many men were praised as kids for being obedient and well-behaved. They learned that love and approval came from pleasing others. But as adults, that creates a problem. Women aren't drawn to men who constantly submit. Example: a woman is always late to dates. A man who lacks boundaries will just accept it again and again, afraid to upset her. He'll think, it's not a big deal. She probably has her reasons. But a woman notices when a man doesn't respect himself. A man with boundaries would address it after a few times and say, hey, it bothers me when you're always late. The key is to treat yourself as just as important as others. It's not about being rude or inconsiderate. It's about self-respect. Men who set boundaries show they value themselves, and that's what makes them attractive. From a psychological perspective, this behavior often comes from a deep need for validation. Many men were praised as kids for being obedient and well-behaved. They learned that love and approval came from pleasing others. But as adults, that creates a problem. Women aren't drawn to men who constantly submit. Example: a woman is always late to dates. A man who lacks boundaries will just accept it again and again, afraid to upset her. He'll think, it's not a big deal. She probably has her reasons. But a woman notices when a man doesn't respect himself. A man with boundaries would address it after a few times and say, hey, it bothers me when you're always late. The key is to treat yourself as just as important as others. It's not about being rude or inconsiderate. It's about self-respect. Men who set boundaries show they value themselves, and that's what makes them attractive. So what's the bottom line? If you saw yourself in some of these points, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you're showing behaviors that women don't find attractive. Many men think they'll be loved if they always try to please women. They believe being nice will earn them affection. But the truth is, women aren't drawn to men who always try to please. They're drawn to men who know who they are, what they want, and where they draw the line. The reason so many men fall into the nice guy trap often comes from how they were raised. They were taught to avoid conflict, to adapt, and to always be liked. While those traits are often rewarded in everyday life, they don't work in romantic dynamics. Women aren't attracted to a man who sacrifices himself. They're attracted to a man who respects himself, and that naturally commands respect from others. The good news? You can change that, and you don't have to become some arrogant jerk who treats women badly. It's not about being disrespectful. It's about putting yourself first. You have to learn that your wants and needs matter just as much as hers. A man with self-respect, who speaks his mind, sets boundaries, and acts without fear of rejection, is irresistible to women. So if you've realized you've been too nice in the past, now's the time to change. Start saying no when something doesn't feel right. Stop apologizing for your own needs. Stop using kindness as a way to earn love. Instead, be a man who takes charge of his own life, who doesn't see women as the center of his happiness, but as a bonus. True attraction doesn't come from being nice. It comes from confidence, independence, and inner strength. Once you understand that, you'll notice a shift. Women will start to see you differently. You won't end up in the friend zone anymore. You won't be taken for granted, and you'll finally get the respect and appreciation you deserve. Not because you're nice, but because you're a man who respects himself. If you like this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss any new tips. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.